This is Plant-Based Briefing, 5 things you never learned about Pavlov's experiments from PETA.org. And I'm Marian Erickson. This is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And I'm pleased to have permission from PETA to share their content. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. 5 things you never learned about Pavlov's experiments from PETA.org. Who was Pavlov's dog? What is a Pavlovian response? Pavlov's experiments with dogs supposedly taught us about classical conditioning. Bring food, the dogs salivate. Pair that food with the sound of a bell, and soon enough, the dogs start drooling at the sound alone. But none of that actually happened. Ivan Pavlov's experiments in the Soviet Union have been humane-washed to justify cruel tests on animals. For more than 6 decades, Pavlov starved, mutilated, confined, and killed thousands of dogs in his gruesome experiments, all in an attempt to prove something we could have learned from non-harmful tests with human volunteers. Here are 5 things about Pavlov's experiments that will outrage you. 1. He didn't use a bell. There was never a bell in Pavlov's tortuous experiments. He did, however, electroshock dogs to record their reactions. And in what should come as a surprise to absolutely no one, dogs suffered mental breakdowns from the electric shocks. 2. He restrained dogs for hours on end. Pavlov often kept dogs strapped into harnesses or restraining devices for extended periods, allowing him to conduct repeated tests on them day after day. Many of these chronic experiments lasted for months or even years, with the same dogs being tied up, operated on multiple times, and used as living tools for data collection. Pavlov treated the dogs like equipment, objects to be clamped in place, cut open, and studied for as long as they could stay alive. 3. He cut into dogs' cheeks, necks, and stomachs. Pavlov performed painful and invasive surgeries on dogs, including putting tubes into their cheeks, necks, or stomachs to collect saliva and gastric juices. In one ghastly sham feeding experiment, he cut into a dog's esophagus so that food never reached their stomach. They would keep eating while the lab worker collected secretions through the hole. His lab made the Pavlov pouch by cutting into a dog's body, pulling a small section of his stomach through the opening, and stitching it to the outside of the animal. 4. Pavlov's laboratory became a factory for dogs' digestive juices. Through his gruesome experiments, Pavlov's laboratory produced large quantities of gastric juices collected through sham feeding. The laboratory workers sold the secretions to the medical market, where they were bizarrely used as a bogus remedy for human indigestion. The process was vile. Workers strapped dogs to tables, kept them hungry, and forced them to eat while their stomach secretions were collected through tubes. By 1904, the lab was peddling more than 3,000 containers of dogs' stolen stomach secretions each year. And number 5, he starved dogs to induce stress. After a flood swept through Pavlov's laboratory, leaving the animals even more traumatized, he noticed their previous conditioning had broken down. Instead of recognizing their suffering, he starved the dogs for 3 days to see if hunger would re-trigger their old responses. It didn't, so he continued deliberately pushing dogs into nervous breakdowns to study how stress-induced trauma could be created. Despite the obvious fact that terrorizing dogs tells us nothing about human psychology. Are dogs still used in experiments? More than a century has passed since Pavlov tortured the dogs in his lab. Today, 48,000 dogs are imprisoned every year in U.S. labs alone. Experimenters force-feed them chemicals, infect them with illnesses, blind them, and torment them in other agonizing ways for research. Laboratories exploit these loyal, sensitive individuals as if they're laboratory equipment before killing them. The extreme stress and suffering Pavlov inflicted on dogs should have rendered his findings unreliable from the start, and that's before considering that dogs have entirely different brains, physiology, and biology than humans. Their reactions can't be used to explain human behavior. But there is hope. State-of-the-art animal-free testing methods, such as computer modeling, human cell structures, artificial intelligence, organ-on-chip systems, and other innovative human-relevant technologies are rapidly becoming the frontier of cutting-edge science. These approaches offer real promise for understanding disease and developing treatments without causing animals to suffer. And you can help accelerate this shift. Take action to keep dogs out of laboratories and support PETA's Research Modernization Now plan linked here, which lays out a clear science-backed roadmap for replacing outdated animal tests with modern, humane, and more effective research methods. Together, we can push science forward. You just listened to 5 Things You Never Learned About Pavlov's Experiments from PETA.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. What is wrong with people? Oh my gosh. How do these people sleep at night? I have no idea. I have done a gazillion other episodes about animal experiments, animal research, animal-free testing methods. I will link some in the show notes, along with a short 15-minute documentary called Test Subjects I highly recommend watching. It's not graphic. It's about 3 young women in the medical field and how they stood up against being forced to do experiments and unnecessary surgeries on animals while they were being trained. But if you use the search field wherever you listen, or go to plantbasedbriefing.com episodes and use the search field there, you can look for episodes by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Since 1985, they've been working tirelessly for alternatives to the use of animals in medical education and research, and for more effective scientific methods. I recommend going to their website, getting on their mailing list. They're always doing lobbying and campaigns to get research labs shut down in universities. They're amazing. You can also look for episodes from Animal-Free Science Advocacy and For Humane Science, or just type in the word vivisection. But some that you might want to check out specifically include 1073, NIH's initiative to prioritize human-based research, a big win for animals, says Doctors Group. 981, Elon Musk's cruel brain experiments under SEC investigation. 870, the fierce battle to stop a massive monkey breeding facility in Georgia. 869, history of the anti-vivisection movement. 682, former vivisector, This is My Confession Letter, by Dr. Larry Hansen. 525, a vegan behind the scenes in the Envigo Beagle Rescue. 509, Meet the Animals, the Mouse. 482, Meet the Animals, Pigs in Science. 393, The Use of Chickens in Agricultural Research, an eye-opening look at unspeakable cruelty. 343, Physicians Committee works to address animal methods bias in scientific publishing. 303, How Foods Are Tested for Depression. 261, Researcher Spotlight, Dr. Lorna Harries. 176, So You Think Dissection is Great for Education? Think Again. 137, The Sad Link Between Animal Agriculture and Experiments. 86, Animals in Education and Animals in Research. 26, Meet the Animals, Rats in Science. And 5, Animals in Testing. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.